Today, we're diving into 3 absolutely unbelievable true stories. We're talking about 3 people trapped in 3 very different but equally impossible prisons. We're going to break down how on earth they endured, what it cost them, and what their journeys can teach all of us about the absolute limits of human survival. So let's just start with the biggest question of all. What does it really mean to survive the impossible? You know, it's a question that goes way beyond just life and death. And to even get close to an answer, we have to look at the stories of the people who've actually been there. First up, we have Otto Warmbier. He was an American student on a trip to North Korea who gets accused of a hostile act and, just like that, becomes a pawn in a terrifying geopolitical nightmare. He wasn't trapped by bars, you see, but by an entire hostile nation. His prison was political, it was public, and it was brutal. Then there's the story of Rom Houben. Now, his prison wasn't a country. It was his own body. After a terrible car crash, he was diagnosed as being in a vegetative state. But here's the thing. In reality, his mind was wide awake, totally conscious, and trapped inside a body that just wouldn't respond. His was a silent, biological prison. And finally, we have Yuri Gagarin, the first human being in space. We all see him as this hero, this incredible pioneer. But for those 108 minutes he was up there, he was more isolated than any human in history. Think about it, a single person trapped in a tiny metal can, facing the vast, terrifying emptiness of the void. His prison was existential. Okay, so to really understand how they survived, we first need to get a handle on the unique nature of their confinement. We're looking at 3 profoundly different kinds of prisons: political, biological, and existential. And the contrasts here are just stark. For Otto Warmbier, the threat was all external. It was man-made. For Rom Houben, the enemy was inside him. His own body had become a biological trap. And for Yuri Gagarin, well, his confinement wasn't about malice or medicine, but about the profound, crushing loneliness of being the first person to ever leave our world behind. 23. Just let that number sink in. 23 years. That is how long Rom Houben laid in a hospital dead, completely aware, hearing every single conversation, feeling every touch, but totally unable to signal to anyone that he was still there. This condition has a name. It's called locked-in syndrome. I mean, can you even imagine? It's like screaming at the top of your lungs, but absolutely no sound comes out. For 23 years. It's a prison made of flesh and bone, where your mind is the only thing left free, and yet it's completely trapped. Now, contrast that with Gagarin's ordeal. It was so much shorter, just 108 minutes, but unbelievably tense. At 9:07 a.m., he's basically strapped to a controlled explosion. 15 minutes later, he's making history, seeing our planet from space. But then, at 10:25, he has to face re-entry, a fiery, violent plunge back to Earth where survival was absolutely not guaranteed. Every single second of those 108 minutes was a life or death gamble. And this right here, this brings us to the very core of their stories. See, the external circumstances were one thing, but the real fight for survival, that happened inside their heads. We're talking about the mind's lonely battle against extreme isolation. So what does happen when you strip away literally everything? Freedom, movement, human contact. What's left? How does the mind possibly cope when it becomes both the prisoner and the last line of defense? Well, to survive, they each had to draw from a kind of inner arsenal. Just think about the perception of time for Rom, warped over 2 decades into this one endless moment. Or the agony of isolation for Otto, enduring forced confessions and psychological torture all alone in a foreign cell. And for Gagarin, it was just the raw terror of the unknown, staring into a blackness no one had ever seen before. In every single case, the will to endure and the power of hope, no matter how tiny, became their only weapons. This really captures their shared experience perfectly. It doesn't matter if you're in a prison camp, a hospital bed, or a space capsule. The ultimate war was fought in that silent theater of the mind. That's where survival was truly won or lost. But here's the thing. Escaping the prison is not the end of the story. Not even close. Surviving the impossible changes you forever. So let's take a look at what came next. 3 profoundly different destinies, all born from this one shared experience of endurance. Yeah, survival doesn't always look like a Hollywood ending. For Otto Warmbier, release came too late, and his story ended in tragedy, becoming this painful symbol of brutality. For Rom Houben, discovery led to a miraculous second life, a chance to finally communicate after decades of silence. And for Yuri Gagarin, survival meant becoming a global icon, a hero who was burdened by a level of fame that became its own kind of prison. So, after looking at these incredible lives, what have we actually learned about survival? Let's go back to that question we started with. It's clear that survival isn't just one thing. It's proof that resilience is both physical and psychological. It shows us the ordeal doesn't just stop when you're saved. The aftermath is a huge part of the journey. And ultimately, it can be a triumph, a tragedy, or a lifelong burden. But I think above all, these stories show that the human spirit's capacity to just endure is so much greater than we can possibly imagine. Which really leaves us with one final, powerful question to think about. For those who have been to the absolute edge and back, when the ordeal is over, does the act of surviving ever truly stop? Or does it just change form? Their lives force us to ask. And the answer? Well, it's as complex as the journey itself.